For the 1984 conventions, I was working both for a daily newspaper in Oklahoma and reporting. I was reporting for my own newspapers in Oklahoma. I was using credentials of a friend who owned a daily. And I was also working for a television station in Kansas. The Democrats went first. They were in July. They were out in San Francisco at the Moscone Center. The Republicans followed in August, renominating Ronald Reagan, who was already president, and George Bush, who was vice president at the time. And they met in Dallas. San Francisco first. San Francisco was, the Democrats held a convention at the Moscone Center. It was pretty much brand new at the time. And it was an absolutely awful facility for the press. It was a long rectangular main hall, and the result was that the press, had no visibility really of the podium. The press traditionally sat to the left of or to the right of the podium, and but in the Moscone Center, there was very limited views, and which made it difficult. Nonetheless, Walter Monreal was nominated, and he had chosen Geraldine Ferraro, who was a congresswoman, hadn't been in Congress all that long, maybe at that point 6 years. She was from New York, and that was I think it was the first time a woman was ever nominated for one of the top positions on a major party to run for president or vice president. Monreal, I just never had a chance. Reagan was wildly popular. Reagan had been elected in 1980, and he won a pretty solid victory. That election, as many elections have since, turned in the last 1980, turned in the last 2 or 3 days, and it turned very much in favor of Ronald Reagan and against the sitting president at that time, Jimmy Carter. And when Reagan took office, almost immediately in March that year, he was almost assassinated by a fellow by the name of John Hinckley. And he, as a result, became, there was a real backlash, and he was able to really pass some sweeping legislation from a tax standpoint and so forth and so on. But the economic times were really rugged at that point. In the late 70s, we were looking 16-18% inflation. At that time, I and some others had organized a savings and loan and gotten that chartered, and we opened up in 79 or 80. We were loaning at 16%. 16% to people we liked. And inflation was just rampant. I was getting at that time 22% on jumbo CDs. A jumbo CD is $100,000, and it was just crazy in the late 70s and early 80s. The newsprint, we were using a boxcar of newsprint every 3 weeks, and the newsprint, which was being manufactured down in Texas, would be come off, be manufactured, and 5 or 6 hours later it would be in our warehouses in Oklahoma, and 3 weeks later they would tell us how much we were going to pay for that newsprint that we had pretty much already used. And I remember calling up the newsprint company and saying, hey guys, we got a milk contract here for 3 years. And I'm looking at my latest invoice, and this, you guys are increasing me 5, 10, maybe more. I don't remember. And they said, oh, we'll correct that for you. And I said, oh, fine, good. And they said, but we don't have any more newsprint at the price that your mill contract is. So we're not going to send you any more newsprint unless you just agree to pay this higher price. So I said to them, well, guys, this revised price sounds good to me. And it was just an insane period of time. Well, anyway, Reagan takes over in 1981 and January 81, and would serve to January of 1989. But he inherited an absolutely awful economy, and he waded right in, and he did made some really stringent decisions, and things got worse and worse initially. To back up just a little bit, I was being invited at that time to State Department briefings out in D.C., and Reagan was inviting the press to come in and have receptions at the White House. So at that time, I was being briefed every 6-9 months at the State Department. And I remember the State Department briefing in D.C. in 78 or 79, that the guys at the State Department were saying, well, we expect to get inflation, I hope we get inflation under control by, the late 80s, maybe 88, 89, 90. And you go, well, there isn't going to be much of a country left if we continue to have 15 and 20% inflation, and if we continue to have to loan to people, to good, solid people as a bank at 16+%. Well, anyway, Reagan, by 1984, the economy had turned, the things that he had done, which were quite stringent economically, actually worked. And memo to the Trump people and Trump naysayers that what Trump is doing right now might really work and quell inflation. So when Reagan rolled into 1984, it was pretty clear he's going to win. He's going to win a resounding victory. The guy was really popular. He had a good bedside manner. And he was just kind of everybody's, likable grandpa, I guess. I don't know. The Democrats were thrusting around trying to get some traction here with Mondale, who was Walter Mondale, who was a senator from Minnesota, I think, and quite far left. Mondale never had a chance, but he was a game guy, because in his acceptance speech, I'm sitting at Moscone Center, and this guy says words to this effect: Ronald Reagan will raise your taxes. Okay. He won't tell you, but I will. I will raise your taxes. Well, if you want to shoot yourself in the foot, oh hell, shoot yourself in the head. Until the 2020 election, when Biden said the same thing, or raise your taxes, and then when Biden said that in 2020, I'm thinking he's a dead man walking. Well, he won. But Mondale did not get away with that in 1984, and he lost every state except his home state, and by all accounts, he could have lost that one if Reagan had gone out there and just said, guys, vote for me. So Reagan kind of pulled off him a little bit there. Republican convention was in August in Dallas, and by then I had become let's call it estranged from the TV station, TV guys I was working for in Kansas, because they had the fellow running the news operations for the station had asked me, told me basically to go stand out front of a house or somewhere where the governor of Kansas, a Democrat, was staying, and let's catch him, having an affair with this woman. Keep an eye out for it. I guess I had his picture and so forth. You go, guys, I don't do Police Gazette. Get back on issues, and I can do that. So I declined to do that, and after that, which was a couple of days in the Democratic convention out in San Francisco, we were kind of not getting along real well. Okay, so we go out to Dallas to cover the Republicans, and I'm still titularly working for them, and they were a CBS station, and CBS threw this bash out in west of Fort Worth, kind of a thing you got on the bandanas, and this is before the convention started, and to kind of get everybody souped up and happy on their affiliates and so on. It was a great party. But Dallas was incredibly hot. And I remember going into the convention center in Dallas, which is the Miller Center, which is not really far from where President Kennedy was assassinated in Dealey Plaza. And it was freezing cold. And within a day or so or two, I had a ferociously bad cold. You gotta love the Texans, though. The Texans, the day or two before the convention opened, they washed they washed the freeways. They closed things, and they put these trucks running down the freeway, and they scrubbed their freeways. The freeways looked fabulous and clean and lovely, and I was sitting up in some high tower and having a drink with some other media guys, I guess, and watching these trucks go up and down and scrub down the streets. And I have to say, they did look good. They tried to put on their. The other thing I remember about Dallas was that one of the grand dams of the Dallas community, Dallas was still really super sensitive about the assassination of John Kennedy, which had happened more than 20 years before. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas in 1963. We're now in 1984, but it still was a very sensitive issue. And of course, the press rolls in and they're digging away at the press, being Democrat always, traditionally, came rolling into Dallas and said, what a Kennedy assassination. And this woman, and I know her name, and I know her company, and we will let others dig that out from the dustbin of history, if you like. But anyway, when she was asked about the Kennedy assassination and how it was done, she replied, he was just a guy from out of town, okay? He was just passing through. One might consider that insensitive. Anyway, that was Dallas, and those were the guys. And the convention itself, by this time I was pretty seasoned. I'd done 3 before I hit Dallas, and these would be my number 4 and 5. And I'd, of course, do 19 of these, stretching out many more years till 2016. And you're going to be renominated. This is President Reagan. You're going to win. almost assuredly. And Bush was going to be vice president again, and it was pretty clear. And so that's there just wasn't a lot to say at that time about it, other than they were awfully proud to have the convention, and so they did, and my relationship with the guys at the Kansas TV station, I have to think, I think that cured me, because I really had realized, finally, it really, that TV news had become titillation. Okay? We're not interested in what Reagan stands for. We're not interested in what the governor of Kansas, a Democrat fellow out in San Francisco, might have to say on relevant issues. What we really are interested in is who's he sleeping with, and can we catch him, and can we embarrass him, and so on, and get our viewers into that. And I had seen a bit of that beginning when I was working in St. Louis for Channel 5 in 1966, and a bit more when I did some reporting for CBS in 1980 at the conventions. But it now was pretty clear that TV news and those who were running it were forced, in a sense, by the owners of the stations, to get ratings. And to get ratings, you're going to do crime news, you're going to do titillation, you're going to be, sex and so forth. There was a TV station, an ABC station in San Francisco, which flipped its news approach in the late 70s, I think, and it was KGO. And it was laughingly said that KGO stood for, in the news standpoint, kickers, grabbers, and orgasms. And they didn't do anything other than a kicker is a story that, and kickers and grabbers are stories that get Harry Sixpack up, who's gone to the kitchen to get a beer, to come back and put his nose against the TV station, TV and watch what they have to say next, and so on. And by the way, when I was at Channel 5 in St. Louis, and I asked, what approach we're going to take here, I had been told, even at that time, that we need a grabber. That coming out of our news, just before our news could go on, we would do a 5 or 10 sec grabber, which is, getting Harry Sixpack back where he belongs, which is looking at your TV screen. And I'd ask for a definite call. Give me an example. The example they were using in 1966 at this very good news station in St. Louis was, here's your grabber, okay? Teenage cheerleader raped. Film at 11. Oh my God. And that's where we had come to all those years ago. And we're talking 40, 50 years ago now. Okay, that's kind of the conventions in 1984, both Democrat and Republican. And we're going to munch our way through those are the fourth and fifth ones. And we got 14 more of these to go, folks. So stay tuned.